Hello, everyone. Good morning. It is 11 o'clock. We're just going to give it one more minute to let a few more jump on, and we'll get started. All right, we have a lot to cover today, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Tips and Tricks. This month, we're hopping into 21.1 features to get you all amped up for the 21.1 release on April 12th. My name is Ileana Acebo, and joining me today are my fellow Tips and Tricks bunnies, Carla Simmons, Don Charnan, Fred Foster, and Mariska Menon. Let's hop right into this month's agenda. This month, we are indeed springing forward into the 21.1 release. We'll be covering the upcoming enhancements in App Builder, Audit Management, Document Management, Foundation, Incident Management, Learning Management, Occupational Health. And ladies and gentlemen, that is not where all the Easter eggs end, because we will also be spilling the jelly beans on what's in the lab for a future release with the CAPA redesign. Fred is going to be starting us off with App Builder.
Thanks, Ely.
And that is Fred. He did dress up for today, just for everyone.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good evening. I'm going to go over some of the new features that we have coming in App Builder. So I'm going to start off. I have a app already started that we're going to use for this month's tips and tricks. And I want to first show you that we've made some changes to notifications. And if we look at our notifications, and if we go into the first one here, this is our existing notification. But I want you all to notice that we changed the active status from a drop-down to a selection, and we added a new feature, which is for the type of notification. And our existing notifications that we've been using along are considered immediate notifications, but we've added an additional type called scheduled. So if I go back, I have some of these already set up to show you. And if we look at this reminder, okay, so I have the notification name, the status is active. It's set up as a scheduled notification. We have our conditions in here, which are what are going to trigger the notification. And then we have a new section which allows you to set up recurring notifications. So if you'll notice, for this recurring notification or a reminder, we have a creation date that's set. And then every one day after the creation date, we will send out a notification up to 10 recurrences. One thing I want to point out that with the recurring notifications is while you do have a setting here to set it to go after X number of recurrences, you probably want to put some kind of a trigger in here that would in essence stop the notifications from going out. So even if I hadn't hit my 10 recurrences yet, you'll notice in here I have a condition where it says form status equals open. So it's only going to send this notification out when the form is open. Once the form is closed, the status changes to close, then it's not going to send notifications anymore. But just pointing out, the next part of the setup for the notification is the exact same as we've always used. Set up your template and the email subject. And then the last screen is where you can select users that should be receiving it or other folks. Just going back again, that was a reminder. This is an alert notification. And remember, in Process Map, reminders come before an event and alerts come after an event. So in here, we still have the form status equal to open for the triggering of it. But here I've changed the way the notification goes out. So now it's going to go 3 days after the review date. So we have a review date in the form, and 3 days after the review was due, it's going to start sending out this alert. And it's going to send it every day, again, up to X number of recurrences or until the conditions have been met. So that's how you would set up an alert. Now, just going back to notifications for a second, one thing I want to point out, and this was actually a feature that came last release in 20.2, is the copy feature notifications. So if you hover your mouse over one of the notifications, you'll notice there's a trash can to delete it and also a copy logo. So if I click this, it's going to do a little processing, and you'll notice that it made a copy of this alert, and it did put in a date stamp on there. If I go and click this, I'm in the alert as it was before the copy of it. One thing I did want to point out, you'll notice when I'm in here now, these fields are not grayed out. The reason they were grayed out on the last alert that I was showing you is because that alert was basically in process. It was sending out those daily notifications. So once it's been set up and is starting to send those out, you cannot make changes to that. If you really needed to make a change, what you could do is make a copy of it, delete the old one, and then just take the copy and do the updates that you needed to in here. But just pointing out a couple other fields here in the recurrence, you have the X number here, and then in our dropdown, it can be every X hours, days, weeks, months, or years. So you have those different functions. And while you can set this to end after an X number of reoccurrences, you can also put in different values. So depending on the fields that you have in your form, this could have been sent or could stop sending X number of days after the review date or after the regular date of a risk. So you have different parameters you can use for setting up the notify until in the notification. So that's one of the new features that we have coming in 21.1, having to do with App Builder. And I think we've had a lot of requests for this, so I think this will be a popular feature. If you, once the version is released, if you need any assistance setting it up, just contact your CSM. Moving on to some additional new items, I'm going to go back to my form here. You'll notice in here, I've set up a section that has what's new in 21.1. And I have a listing here, and I just want to point out that these were all done with the label feature. This is a great tool to use to put hints or instructions into your form for your end users. You can put these before any control that might give a little more information about what's going into that control or what information the end user has to enter. But these are the features that are coming in 21.1. And one of the ones that I want to show you is we've added an additional data source, which is for risk assessment data. And I'm going to go and I'm going to add a new section into my form. And I'm going to call it risk assessments. And I am going to add into here a drop-down list. And I spelled this wrong. And the drop-down list is going to be for the risk assessment ID. So I have the field in there. I want to go over here to my data sources. If I click down in the drop-down, you'll notice we have a new data source called risk assessments. I also want to point out one thing on this screen. You'll notice some of these data sources have blue dots next to them, and some don't. If a data source has a blue dot, it's a custom data source, which means it's one that you have put into the system. System data sources will not have a blue dot, such as risk assessments. Also, users and employees are common internal data sources that are used. But for this example, I'm going to select risk assessments. And then I want to pick the field that's going to be in the form, and that's going to be the assessment ID. And now when I add this risk assessment into the form, I'm going to use the drop down to bring it up by ID. But I also want some other information to auto fill in, such as the title of the risk assessment, the description of it, and the date. So I'm going to add a few more fields in here, and then we're going to make those auto populate. So I am going to add a text box for the title, and this is going to be the risk assessment title. And I'm going to add a text area for the description. I still can't spell, but that's okay. And then I finally want to put in a date for the risk assessment. Now I said that I want these these three fields to auto-populate based on the assessment ID. So what I'm going to do in here in the field, the master field, if you will, I'm going to go down here into the dependencies, and I'm going to click Add. And when you click to add a dependency, there are two options you have in here. You can do a dependency or an auto-populate. I'm actually going to do an auto-populate for this. And now it's going to ask me what fields do I want to auto-populate. So first one I want to auto-populate is the risk assessment title. And then I need to say which part of the data source, which field in the data source do we want to appear there. And that's going to be the assessment title. Now I want to add a couple more. I want to do the same thing for the description and the date. So I'm going to populate more fields. I'm going to bring up the risk assessment description. And similar to what I did with the title, I want to have the description in here. And finally, the last one is going to be the date. So it's going to be the risk assessment date. And the column will be the assessment date. Once I've set those up, I'm going to click the check mark up here to say that I've set up my dependencies. And then I can hit save, and it's going to save these controls into the form. Now, if I go back the forms, and I go into the March tips and tricks, you'll notice here are the label fields that I mentioned when we were doing the programming of it. And then here is the section that I just added in. Now I've got the drop down here from our data source that will show us all the risk assessments that are in the system. So I'm going to select the risk assessment on here. And you'll notice by setting those auto-populate fields, the assessment title, the description, and the date appear. So that's a way that you can set up not only the new data source of risk assessment, but I also want to show you how you can set other fields to auto-populate based on any data source that you have in the system. So that's the new data source of risk assessment. Now we have a couple other features, and I want to go back to my home page. And I want to point out in our app widgets, or the widget for apps, we have made getting into the apps a little easier. So if I go and click on one of the icons for an app, it's going to give me some options. It's going to give me an option for data, to modify, or new. And these will be dependent on what permissions you have in a form. So if you don't have the permission to modify a form, you will not see that there. You would only see new and data. But these are quick ways to get to those screens of the form. So if I wanted to go and get to my data screen, I just click data, and it takes me right into the data screen. So we've enhanced the widget capabilities to allow you to get into the form a little bit quicker.
Wow, Brad, that's really awesome.
Thanks. Another feature that we added with this version has to do with the data sources. And we now have the ability to sort data sources by any column. So I am going to go in here to manage data sources. I have a data source right here called supervisor test that I'm going to go into. And you'll notice next to each column, you have an icon for sorting the column. So if you click that, it will sort that column either ascending or descending. And while we always had that feature available for column 1, we have now added it to the other columns that you have in your data source. So it's very easy to sort your data sources now by any of the columns that are in there. There's also a button here for field settings. And if you go in here, it also gives you the ability to do a sorting, and it will also tell you the type of data field that each of those is. So that's a feature that we have added to the data sources for being able to select which columns you want in which order. Going back to the apps again, we've added a sort of a new feature in the apps that has to do with our document management program and module. And this will allow the users who are using mobile to access the documents that you might have in document management through an app. And it's very easy to set that up. You can basically create an app. And if you go into the form settings, there's an option here to basically build a form based on one of these templates. And we've done this for document management, learning management, and risk assessment. So if you wanted to build the app that you're going to use for doc management, you would just go in here and select doc management. If you wanted it for learning management, you'll notice as soon as I hit learning management, the form quickly changed to fields that are appropriate for learning management. And then we also can do the same thing with risk assessments. So that's a quick way of building the forms. And you can do this quite easily. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. And I just want to show you a couple other things that are coming with the new version. This is what I was talking about that we just built, where you can do an app for document management. Once that app is built, you would launch it, and then here you would see all of the documents that you can go in there and select. And once you select the document, you have a couple of options. You can export it to a PDF, which is what we're seeing there on the right-hand side, and you can also do a email copy of it. So that's those are what's in the new document management app. And then on the next slide, we've also done some enhancements for Android. And right here, we've added record counts on the card views. So if you're using an app in Android, you will now see the number of records that are appropriate for each of those cards. Next slide. We've also made some enhancements on the list screen. So we now have 2 column views. So you have data both on the left and right-hand side of the cards, and you get a display of open and overdue action items. And we have a icon, the paperclip there, to indicate attachments. On the summary page, we've added the ability to print records, to do a duplicate of the record, and you can see a preview of the documents right there from the summary screen. So those are the features that we have added for App Builder. I think they'll be very useful for everyone. And
yeah, some really super exciting stuff coming there, you know, the alerts and reminders and being able to schedule. So you can basically replicate that alerts and reminders feature you see throughout the action items and task manager, and, you know, really remind people of key dates on your apps. The reading of the document management, super cool. So if you're looking for your users to be able to access document from a mobile device, like a operating procedure, now they don't have to log in and go via desktop. They can just go right into the app and pull that document, maybe something that's important for their job. Same thing with risk assessments. You know, if you have some apps that require follow-up action from a risk assessment, like maybe conducting some inspections or reevaluating that assessment, now you can pull in those attributes. So a lot of really cool things coming for App Builder.
thanks, Dawn. And with that, we're going to hand it over to Carla.
Thanks, Fred. I too am stoked about those alerts and reminders, and now being able to have App Builder and document management. Who wouldn't want like portable documents? It's awesome. Anywho, team, I have missed you. I am now hopping back in and have the honor of highlighting the upcoming enhancements for audit management. So first on the checklist is the new and improved audit list screens. Process Map is always aiming to improve the best quality outputs. So in our last release, users were given the ability to select an audit subtype in order to audit employees and assets. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am really excited to advise that this spring, users will be able to view the field in the Manage Audit screen. So as if this wasn't enough, we have added a section to the module specifically for managing subtypes. So here on the screen, you can see that this section allows users to manipulate where they would like to see the fields by simply using the arrows to the right of the column fields. Okay, this is useful because if the user can now search by subtype and more specifically by the subtype value. So this is a way if an inspection is conducted on an asset, the user is actually able to search even further down to see which type of asset was inspected. The same thing would work for departments. So if an inspection was done on a department and the department is being inspected, you're now able to search that department and see how many inspections were run on that particular department or on that asset. So I know that the system admins on the call today are doing a little maypole dance around their desks right now because it's really the little things like a clean and easy way to look at data that really makes the difference sometimes. So as if this was not exciting enough, the audits module, next slide please, now supports multilingual tags for the audit scorecard report as well as the audit detailed report. So as you can see by this slide, I have actually exported these reports in Spanish and French to provide a visual for our audience today. Another fun fact is that the tabs will also be translated when they're exported into Excel. The images on the right-hand side, on the bottom right of the slide here, will show you what that will look like there. And well, folks, that sums it up for audits. I want to turn it over to Mariska because I really want to see what's cracking with the document management module.
Thank you so much, Carla. The list view screen is super important, and Process Map really focused on it for this release. And I'm sure our customers are going to love the updates to audits. Next, but not the least, is Mobile Pro within document management. So, as system administrators, have you ever wanted to quickly look up documents or users that were uploaded into mobile, but it was time consuming? So, excuse me. Our latest enhancement now allows for the ability to not only view, but search for specific documents in mobile. So we now have a search document feature, as you can see from my first screenshot there, where you would have the ability to look up or search a document option and display the final document detail with titles, business process, your document library, your primary folder, your release date, your document owner, etc., all within your list screen. Okay, so by using the document search functionality that is highlighted on the screen, you'd be able to review these. Okay, you also have the ability to filter your list to view records that are only based on your preference. So what this means is the option to view the document detail in summary and only display fields based on the data that might be available for that specific document. So based on my last screenshot here, you can look for things such as title, business process, document owner, release date, the last update, and again, the version or the primary folder date. So you really have the option to download the document or the attached document from your summary screen itself. Okay, and you also have the option to generate a PDF, as you can see from my third screen here, of the actual specific document detail. Or you now have the option to send a copy of the document in an email to the logged in user. So thank you, Process Map, for continuously thinking of our users and how to enhance our user experience. Next up, we're going to cover our newest enhancement to Foundation. So as a system or location administrator, you might want to know or have the ability, at least, of some sort to track usage of the system. Right? So based on my screenshot, as you can see, we now have the ability to track successful and unsuccessful login attempts to the Process Map system, as well as users who haven't accessed the application for more than 60 days. So how you would access this is through my breadcrumbs up top. Under Setup, you would go to Location Setup, and under Administration Setup, as you can see, we have views that have been created out of the box within your list screen. So by simply toggling it to successful logins for current month, as you can see, it displays information such as the username, the time logged in and out, the overall time spent within the system, displays even the location that you're currently at, what specific device, whether it's mobile or web, that you used to access the system, and even breaks it down by your browser name. This is going to come super, super useful, or even your system name when you're submitting those support tickets, and the team kind of has to dive in a little bit and would ask you what browser you're on. So this is one of the screens where you'd be able to access that information. Okay, on my next screen here, so again, the setup is the exact same. As part of the activity tracker, we also created an out-of-the-box view that would allow you to track your fail logins of the current month. Okay, so as you can see here, it breaks it down by username, the number of attempts to log in, okay, along with the message that might have been received to the users upon login. Okay, so again, it does let you know based on my last column here if the login was successful or not. And again, breaks it down by what specific message or what specific action was the result of the user not being able to log in. Okay, so we have no feature currently that does track those logins. So thank you, Process Map. And last but not the least, we also have the ability now to track or monitor users that have not accessed the system or the application for a long period of time or over 60 days. Okay, so again, by accessing setup, location setup, and administration setup, and by changing or adjusting your filter to an active login more than 60 days, again, these are out of the box views that you can set up, as your default. You now have the ability to track the last time a user was specifically logged in. Okay, so this would really help our system administrators and users maybe focus on adoption of the system and even potentially identify training and overall gaps with usage of the system and modules. Next up is our enhancements to incident management with the list view and our metric screen. So Process Map really thrives on feedback from our users, and there was most certainly some confusion with the metrics generated from the incident summary screen and your manage incident list screen. So our main goal was to reduce, or is to reduce, support issues that have been claiming the data mismatch between these two screens. Okay, we did listen and we did hear that the naming was a pain point for our users, since the display of was treatment provided off-site was sometimes confused with the case management list screen of the employee treated off-site. So thank you, Process Map. We have now created in our enhanced system, if you go to your manage list view screen, so again, the way you would access this is through modules, incident management, and your manage incident reports. By editing your manage view screen or by adding or modifying it, you now have the ability to add in, as per my highlighted box here, whether the employee was treated off-site. Okay, so the enhanced system has been replaced. So rather than have it for what's treatment provided off-site, our enhanced system, has now been replaced with was employee treated off-site in your manage incident list screen views. Okay, so you will still have a was treatment provided off-site option to add through. That is from your case management screen. Okay, and you do have the was treatment provided off-site is renamed to, as you can see from my second one here, highlighted to was treatment provided off-site case progression. So we really added that additional filter to just help make life easier for our users and really eliminate that confusion between where the metrics were generated from. Okay, and by simply adding on a specific column or a field to your manage list view screen, as you can see from my second screenshot here in my incident list screen, by adding it on, the employee treated off-site portion or column can now be added to your list screen as well. So really focus on the information that you'd want to see or you'd want to access upon login to your system. If you have any questions regarding setting up your list views or setting them up for default, so that's kind of your landing page when you do access your incident list screen, please reach out to your CSMs and we'd be more than happy to walk you through it. Next up are incident management metrics. Okay, so nowhere in the system do we Nowhere in the system, in the Process Map system or our prior system, did we have the ability to view the count or the total number of submitted claims. So the existing metric for the total workers compensation claim was only based on specific business rules that were created within the system. So Process Map really wanted to provide a metric that displays the total number of submitted claims without any filtering. Okay, this would also consider only approved claims for your claim rate metric, and the updated formula will take effect beginning from 2021 since it is a newer enhancement. Okay, so this really ensures that you have that comprehensive data available at your fingertips without having to create several additional filters or try and determine the metrics yourself. So once again, thank you Process Map for always thinking of our customers. Okay, and again, the enhanced system for our new enhancement with the ability, as you can see, you access it through modules, incident management, and metrics. You would now have the new metric in your screen that highlights total workers' compensation claims that are submitted, and that will show the actual number of claims submitted. Okay, so for now, the existing metric, so total workers' compensation claims, is renamed as total workers' compensation claims approved. Okay, and just as an FYI or fun fact, there isn't an impact to the Cognos reports that you guys might have built using the existing total workers' compensation claim measure. This would only apply to new reports or new claims that have been submitted past 2021. Next up, I'm going to pass it on to my fellow bunny to walk us through some enhancements to the OC Health module.
Thank you so much, Mariska. It's so exciting that the spring release brought so many fun goodies to occupational health module. If you joined our tips and tricks before, you know that OCT Health is one of my favorite modules, and that mostly stems from the many years of working in healthcare. So I also know that Ileana is clenching onto her seat with excitement as I present this, because she too has the healthcare background and was yearning to present this module. But since I've been away for a couple months, she let me go at it. And I'm just so happy to announce the feature list for the 20.1 release. And I can't wait to dive in and further unpack the topics of the next slide. Great. So the first feature pulled out from the basket is the new independent encounter. All of my OCT Health users, this is for you. These are unprecedented times, and what used to be a handful of patients being seen by OCT Health personnel has turned into dozens. Users needed a quick way to get people in and out through this pandemic. So our country has managed to give out millions of tests, and we're now able to administer millions of vaccines. Then Process Map needed to keep up. So in 20.1, users will have the ability to submit an encounter independent of an appointment. As my Rockstar Bunny here is demonstrating, a new access point will now be available in the OCT Health module panel. The user will then be able to select the encounter and go right into capturing the required information for the particular encounter. Now, when you have associates walking in because they either have COVID symptoms or they're in need of testing, healthcare personnel can quickly document the visit and refer to the patient to the next steps. This can be done for all encounters. The reason this enhancement is so easily we can easily capture walk-ins, whether we're administering medications, doing a quick COVID test, for minor report-only incidents or non-planned encounters that aren't on the appointment schedule. We have also issued a modification to the referred for options. The current version, this field automatically defaults to blank. So we saw how this could cause some confusion. So now it does default to select. And this is to indicate the user to go ahead and select the option and indicate that a selection hasn't already been made. So it is there to provide more clarity. We now have that select option available in that referred to pick list. All right. Another hot fix being thrown in for this release is the appointment calendar pop-up. In our current version, if a person is booked from, let's say, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and another person is booked from 10 to 11, a pop-up comes up that advises the user that he or she is overbooking the provider. So as you know, guys, if you've been on this before, I don't like overbookings in the world of healthcare. That is no bueno. So this technical team the development team has now been able to produce a pop-up and modify that so the pop-up does not come up if the appointment is scheduled at that overlapping minute, if you will. That is great. We have fixed that. And now, last but not least, keep in mind, I have saved the best for last, but this statement is purely subjective. However, I am quite excited to show you this next functionality on my next slide. All right. The ability to view and print medical records from one place. Now, Oct Health users, this has been asked and we have delivered. There is now an insight report that is our gift, and it is giving us the ability to view the medical records as well as print them. So on this slide, I have provided the prompts. So you're able to select a range of dates as well as any particular employee that you want to look up, their location and encounter. And hit apply and a report will generate. The fun part about this report, as you will see in our next slide, is that it does have tabs up at the top. So you're able to actually toggle to different information on the screen here. So this is allowing us to view, right? It's allowing us to view the medical record. If we go to clinic notes, we're able to view our comments there. If we go to attachments, we are now actually provided a hyperlink that we can select to navigate us to the attachments. Okay, as in all reports at any time, users could go ahead and click that, what I like to call the play icon on the top left, to export this file to their preferred file type. And all the attachments are actually going to appear on that report. So if we go into our next slide, we're actually going to see what that report looks like. So here's an example. I've actually exported it to Excel. And as you can see that the report, when exported, is also going to contain several sheets along the bottom, or different tabs that is going to contain the data from these encounters. By simply looking, you see that the encounters are grouped by date. This allows for easy filtering. So you can just filter up a particular date and get the encounters for that date. And then you can also toggle back and forth between the sheets to gather different data. Next slide. All right. So here I've actually selected the clinic notes tab, where the user can actually see the clinic notes. And also click on the attachment link to navigate them to the attachment. So folks, this is a very powerful tool, a very powerful report to keep providers informed and provide the associate the details that they're requiring about their medical health. Another great thing about the report is that it can be scheduled out. So remember, users can subscribe to all process map reports. Therefore, by simply selecting the frequency, this report can be emailed out on a weekly or even a daily basis to help prepare for the patient load the next day. If you need any help with subscribing to reports, please don't hesitate to reach out to your customer success manager. This is an awesome functionality to keep all parties involved updated. And this is not only when it comes to occupational health. This comes to all of our modules and all of our reports. You can set those subscriptions, set it and forget it, and ensure that in your email that report will be provided. Okay? When I used to work in healthcare, the doctors would often ask me to pull a report of the last visit for every follow-up patient coming in the next day. So this would help the docs get prepared and kind of get their mindset around what's coming in and what the next day is going to look like, and get prepped for that patient initially. So this report would have saved my life, and I hope that it's as valuable to our users as I would have found it back then. Anywho, enough of me going down memory lane. Let's see what 20.1 release has brought up for learning management. Have you all had a chance to read the release notes for learning management? If you don't know how to access them, the release notes are available in our help site. That can be reached by always selecting the question mark that's located on the top right-hand side of the platform. If you haven't taken a sneak peek already, don't worry. That's why we're here. Learning management, or LMS, as users like to call it, has been the focus for Process Map because we're all aware of how important it is to make training fun and efficient. Process Map Products Development Team has been working hard to make things easy. We now have a My Trainings view for learning management that will only show the users trainings that are assigned to them. So this provides a more personal experience for the users, and by setting this view as their default, they will be able to eliminate clicks and making training seamless. I don't know about everyone on the call, but if I was taking a year's worth of training, I would boogie a little, and I'm not exaggerating. I would definitely boogie a little to know that I just have one condensed space to access my trainings. Oh, now here is an Easter present for our users in training management. After the 20.1 release, users will be able to launch trainings right from that notification link. So, guys, this is epic. Now, when they are sent that notification and users are informed that they have that training schedule, you can see here that I've provided on the slide an image of what that notification will look like. What's different is that they'll have a link, and by pressing on that link, they'll be navigated to their course. As you can see, they're also given the course instruction, the instructor type, and when and at what time their course is being scheduled. But that link will actually navigate them back in. So it's definitely very easy to use, and they're able to navigate it from that notification. All right. So next slide. All right, folks. Well, it's story time. I have a story for you. Once upon a time, there was a bunny named Ops who was scheduling out trainings to teach others how to harvest safely. There was some rare downtime around the carrot farm, and he wanted to get ahead of the game and schedule out trainings for the entire year. It just so happened that some of these trainings were not recurring. When he went into the system to schedule them out, he was frustrated that the system didn't allow Ops to select the scheduled training end date. He started to scurry, and then he had an idea. He clicked on the question mark on the top right of the screen to access the help site and went straight to the release notes. Here he found, in a few short days, they would have the ability to change the scheduled training end date for recurring and non-recurring trainings. Ops Bunny hopped for joy and hurried to the UAT site to explore. Wow, guys, I really thought that was going to be one sad bunny. I'm so happy that we were able to turn his frown face upside down. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a true story. As of the 21.1 release, you will be able to select an end date to your scheduled trainings. It will no longer be system generating. Here on the screen, I have provided for you on the top, you can see if the session is not recurring, then the scheduled training end date will no longer be grayed out. If the session is recurring, then the system will provide what I've identified at the bottom of this slide to select the frequency when it recurs, and the repeat until date has now the option of selecting an end date. All right. We can go to the next slide. We've also fixed the report when it comes to recurring tasks. So I definitely want to go ahead and thank the product development team and insight team for this. This is major. Before, if some of you guys remember, in the outcomes column on the slide, if the training was recurring, there used to be a null value because our system did not recognize that there was more than one training. Now we have provided you a complete and incomplete status per recurring course. So whether we schedule 2, as I've demonstrated on the screen, or 5, we will actually be able to track independently in Report Central which have been completed and which trainings are still pending. So that's all very exciting. I'm glad that LMS has so much to offer, and I can't wait to hear the feedback from our users. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ileana to give us a sneak peek of what's in the lab.
Thank you, Carla. You Ock Health hogger you. A little birdie told me there's plenty coming to Ock Health this year, so I'll have my chance too, ladies. So 21.1 is, of course, far from the last of the upgrades that we have in store for you this year, guys. So we wanted to give you a sneak peek of what we have in store for you later this year. I'm going to hop into the lab and spill those jelly beans on one of the most highly anticipated enhancements of 2021, which is the CAPA redesign. Process Map heard your feedback loud and clear, and we are excited to deliver the web-based CAPA redesign in the 2021 summer release. So hop along with me as I go down the rabbit hole on some of these new features. Probably the most obvious change is the overall layout of the new enhanced action item summary screen, which is going to provide you not just better workflow visualization, as you can see on the bottom left-hand side here. There is a breadcrumb trail pertaining to this action item, and the overall workflow has also been divided into sections by the tabs on the top left corner. We're going to go into these sections soon, but we're also delivering some new user-friendly features, like being able to drag and drop attachments. And I cannot forget to tell you about the new icon buttons on the top right corner that I'm pointing to for you on this slide. The first icon is for quick navigation to alerts and reminders. The middle icon for cost information. And by clicking those 3 little dots, or the ellipsis for the experts on the call, you will have an option to export a report on this action item. I know we definitely had a few of you on the line that were requesting that ability, so I'm excited to be able to present it to you today. Now, I did previously mention that this redesign would be providing enhanced workflow visualization, but I'm going to dare to say that it will also provide some optimization because we have provided sections for the workflow as well. When you first click New to create a new action item, you'll be navigated over to that fancy new action item summary screen and to the first section in the workflow, Details. Here you will enter your title, your due date, description. In short, you'll enter all the details of this action item. And once you click Save, your action item ID will, of course, populate. I also want to point out that the bottom box here, if you click the check mark next to required verification, you will have an additional section later on that will be visible at the top for verification of the action item. But that's not it for this screen. On the right-hand side, that side pane, we have another little gift for you. Here you will find the source information for the action item. So in this screenshot example, I started off from incident management. So the source information includes my incident ID, description, and even the incident type. This is a great snapshot of information for the user. And I have news for you because this right side pane only gets better as we continue on in the workflow of this action item. You'll see what I mean just shortly. So what about after I save the details and assign the action item? Well, here's the cool feature. I assign this action item to Bob, so when Bob comes into Process Map and clicks his open action item, he's actually going to be navigated directly to the next step in the action item workflow. So he'll be taken to the Complete tab in the action item summary screen. As you can see, I boxed that in at the top there. He can change the status, indicate what action he took, and if he had the permission, he would be able to extend the due date as well. And remember how I said that the pane on the right gets better? Well, now you can see that the source title becomes a hyperlink. So Bob can easily navigate to the respective summary screen. Another big customer request and a huge time saver as well. Since I checked off that verification is required when I created this action item, the next step in the workflow is the verification section. And that right pane is very user-friendly for that user because doing this verification step, because not only will they get the source information with the hyperlink to quickly navigate to the respective summary page if they needed to, but they also get a snapshot of the details and the complete sections that have been entered previously. Ladies and gents, this is tips and tricks, so there is more. Let's talk about linkage into apps. So via the task management module, you're able to link your apps to tasks. So you lucky folks out there still get the new enhanced action item summary screen. You still get the cool pane on the right side with all the details and the source information. You get the breadcrumbs on the bottom, and you get the ability to drag and drop images. But ladies and gentlemen, you can also require for users to add data to certain forms. Let me show you what this looks like from the beginning of the workflow. So the user goes into their pending task, and as you can see in the middle there, this action item requires for the user to add data to a form, aka an app, in this case, the safety observation form. So the user would actually be able to click the Add Data button and be navigated over to the app form to fill it out. Once navigated, they can fill out all the required information, and as Mariska would say, voila, back in my action item summary screen, my form data will be there. This is an easy way to close out tasks. I know you probably have some questions about this upcoming CAPA redesign. It is currently in the lab right now as we speak. So be on the lookout and stay tuned for an upcoming tips and tricks because this will surely be one that we will be taking a deep dive into. And now I will send it back over to Dawn for questions.
Great. Are there any questions from the group? I know we had a lot of different questions on the chat that we went ahead and answered, but any other questions about anything that we showed today?
I have a question about the linkages from CAPAs to back to app forms. So if you created an action from an app, can you link back to the app from the action?
So this one is more about the actual completing of an app. It doesn't link to the original app.
Please, can you put that on the list?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? Okay, great. Well, I would like to do a special shout out, as always, to the Process Map development team and our product management group. They always have their ears opening. Special thanks to our customers, because without you, we wouldn't have the ideas. And our tips and tricks crew for another wonderful month of tips and tricks. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, great work.
Thank you, everybody.